Now first we have to ask, what is a maiden? A maiden is the classical beauty standard for the unmarried woman. A being of pure intent, being loyal to her potential husband while also being incredibly kind to all those around her. The maiden is typically treated in reverence. Everyone either wants her or wants to be her. The maiden is often used as a trophy for the characters in the story to fight over. In many media, she represents an unattainable beauty that the protagonist must overcome great odds in order to acquire. Bianca from The Taming of the Shrew and Gwendolyn from The Importance of Being Earnest both fit this archetype well. Bianca has many suitors vying for her affection. However, she's not allowed to marry anyone until her infamous sister Catherine is married. This propels the plot of the play itself. Similarly, Gwendolyn is being reserved by Lady Bracknell for marriage, yet Jack fights tooth and nail in order to be able to marry her as Ernest Worthing. Cecily, also of The Importance of Being Earnest, is a maiden figure within the story. She's very kind-hearted and she expresses an interest in trying to help Jack's foul-tempered brother, Ernest. Now let's see how a fair maiden does in her blind date. The earliest appearance of a maiden dates back to ancient Greek time with Persephone, daughter of the Greek mother goddess Demeter. This literary figure would evolve and continue to persist far past the time of the ancient Greeks and well into the modern age. Some prominent figures of the maiden archetype include Penelope from the Odyssey. Her beauty in the story causes her to have many suitors that wish to wed her. Despite all the attention she gets, she still remains loyal and faithful to her husband Odysseus. The maiden figure has progressed over time to a more damsel in distress archetype, which is evident in the Disney animated movie Snow White. Snow White displays herself as a kind, cheerful, and gentle person. Her generosity, however, makes her susceptible to being manipulated by others, which is evident when she is convinced to eat the poison apple without her knowledge, and the prince of the story goes out of his way to find a cure for her. The modern-day maiden is disguised and almost invisible. Let's go to Japan and look at one of the more odd maidens. Android 18 in Dragon Ball Z. Despite her creation for malicious intent, she eventually settles down with Krillin and is shown to be loyal to him when she asks the wish-granting deity Shenron for the best present for her husband. Now let's take a look at how that date is going, shall we? Wow, I feel bad for him. Let's take a look at another figure, the Dandy.
The dandy is usually depicted as a secondary character that props up and cooperates with the protagonist. The dandy symbolizes self-indulgence as well as the revelation of truth. The dandy's nature is one of flamboyance and extravagance, which is expressed with their attire. The dandy is always well dressed and values only themselves and their art. Dandies are treated as careless individuals who only care for fashion. They rebel against society standards and dresses how they please. Hortensio from The Taming of the Shrew and Algy from The Importance of Being Earnest to a degree fit the characteristics of a dandy. Hortensio is a secondary character in his story, and judging from Petruchio's wedding, it is most likely that he's a better dresser than him. Coincidentally, Algy, like Hortensio, is also the secondary character to his story and dresses properly and helps his friend Jack to marry Gwendolyn. Let's see how the dandy will do with his blind date. The term dandy dates far back in time and was first used around the early 19th century by a group of trend-setting aristocrats that resided in England. This rich group of Englishmen created the roots of dandy by later on forming the Macaroni Club. For example, the famous American patriotic song Yankee Doodle, Stuck a Feather in His Cap and Called It Macaroni, refers to these early dandy fashions and his Macaroni Club. George Brian Bew Brummel was one of the first and most famous dandies of them all. Although dandyism has modernized throughout the centuries, it is still used to refer to a fastidious or flamboyant dresser. Some examples of a dandy can be found in the infamous character Jay Gatsby. For every occasion, no matter how little, he is always dressed to impress not just for others, but for himself. The modern-day dandy is someone who rebels against the socially acceptable clothing in today's world. An example of the modern-day dandy can be found in Edna Mode from The Incredibles. While she may not be what the typical dandies are, she fits the criteria of one. She is all about making nice and fashionable superhero outfits. She has strict rules with the outfits she designs, like how she emphasizes the absence of capes in any outfit. Let's look back at the dandy's blind date. Wow, that went actually pretty well, all things considered. Let's take a look at the final figure, the shrew.
One may wonder, what is a shrew? The shrew is an ordinarily vulgar and foul-tempered woman who is typically an obstacle in the way of the protagonist. The shrew can be considered to be the antithesis of the maiden, representing many opposites of the maiden's attributes. The nature of the shrew is one of a standoffish nature, being combative with anyone and everyone within their vicinity. In popular media, the shrew's outrageous behavior is often used for a comedic effect. The shrew may also be used to represent a character who goes against the grain of the current society she may live in. Catherine from The Taming of the Shrew is a prime example kickstarting this cliché itself. Another example of such can be seen as Gwendolen in The Importance of Being Earnest. Although she appears to be a lovable maiden-like figure, she goes against societal norms by trying to get married without her parents' permission, as well as becoming very aggressive towards Cicely when she discovers they are married to the same person.
The history of the shrew dates back to William Shakespeare's time. The name shrew is defined as a clamorous, rude, mean, low, and foul-mouthed woman. The name shrew derives from shrew for evil or scolding person. Fun fact, the synonym of shrew is harridan, which refers to the slang term for aging prostitute. The word originates from the French word haridelle, which in itself means old horse. An example of the shrew in Shakespeare's time can be pinpointed to Queen Elizabeth I. Even though she was witty and clever, she was also known for her hot temper attitude, which shows her shrew-like behavior. The shrew's character has evolved itself in modern media as one of the most hated characters on a TV show. Skylar White from Breaking Bad is one of these hated characters in their respective shows. She is very argumentative with her husband Walter White to the point where they eventually file for a divorce. She has a foul-mouthed temper, which is directed towards Walter, and is despised by her son Walt Jr. Another shrew-like character is Temperance Brennan from Bones. She is very strong-minded and will argue with someone if she thinks they are wrong. She only believes in facts and doesn't know much about human emotions.
He just can't catch a break now, can he? Now, what can be concluded from all these three prominent figures?
Both playwrights have differences and similarities regarding the idea of the maiden in the male-dominated world of Wilde and Shakespeare's era. The figure of the maiden is represented by Cecily and Bianca. Wilde's maiden is presented through Cecily as a pure virgin who spends her time studying Greek and Latin as she fantasizes about her love story with her knight. She also writes everything in her diary, as she states, "I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life." Whereas Shakespeare's maiden can be identified as the beautiful and graceful figure of Bianca, Kate's sister. She is displayed as a pretty, obedient, and polite daughter who lives up to her name, White, in looks and character. When Lucentio first sees her, he swiftly falls in love with her, particularly struck that she is young and modest and sacred and sweet.
In Wilde's word, the dandy is a man who pays particular attention to his appearance, dress and lifestyle, almost to the point of excess, while using his wit and charm to point out society's hypocrisy and double standards. His view of the dandy figure is personified in his character Algernon. Algernon is the vivid, witty, selfish and unethical secondary character, in the importance of being earnest. He is given to make delightful sarcastic pronouncements that either make no sense at all or touch on something profound. He creates the fictional character Bunbury to give him a deceit, which draws him away from the tiresome or distasteful social obligations. He states that, "I've invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose." Whereas Shakespeare's dandy is in the Taming of the Shrew is shown to be Hortensio. Hortensio is an outgoing person who has many friends from Padua and beyond. He is Petruchio's good friend and he even helps him to get a wife, stating that, "I can, Petruchio, help thee to a wife," which eventually leads to Hortensio escorting Petruchio and Catherine to Battista's house so that they can marry.
Now let's look at Wilde and Shakespeare's idea of a shrew. Wilde's shrew is a woman that is confident, worldly, and straightforward. His idea of a shrew is presented through Gwendolen Fairfax in The Importance of Being Earnest. She believes in appearance, proper manner, and upper-class snobbery. Her shrew tendencies are apparent when she has a conversation with Cicely about who will marry Ernest Worthing. She grows angrily towards Cicely, which is evident when she insults Cicely's choice of food, stating that cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays, so that displays how mature and more civilized she is compared to her. Shakespeare's version of the shrew is defined through Katharina Manola in The Taming of the Shrew. Kate is presented as the typical shrew in that she is unruly, uncontrollable, and bad-tempered. She blames people around her and has no respect for their age or social standing. She is aggressive and abrasive both physically and verbally. This is evident when Petruchio describes her as an irksome, brawling scold, which depicts how troublesome of an individual Katharina is.
According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, domesticity is the quality or state of being domesticated. But what does it mean to be domesticated? To be domesticated is to be tamed, to run the home, and be centered on the family. This notion of being domesticated and being tied down to the house and family is antithetical to many character archetypes.
Let's go.